Let us begin our learning journey about the service desk practice with Section 1. In Section 1, we will be covering the key concepts of the practice. Of the 20 questions in the exam, 5 will be from this section. All those 5 questions will be at understanding level, not application level, meaning they would be at Bloom's level 2 and not Bloom's level 3. The exam is a mix of both Bloom's level 2 understanding and Bloom's level 3 application questions. In this section, the exam syllabus is to know the purpose of the practice and get to know some of the key terms and concepts such as communication channels, omni-channel, service empathy, moment of truth, and conclude with the practice success factors and key metrics based on those success factors. We begin with the purpose of the practice. The purpose here is to capture demand for incident resolution and service requests. It should also be the single point of contact and the entry point, that is, of the service provider with all its users. So what this means is the services as a practice has the best awareness about how much is the demand for incident resolution and how much is the demand for service requests. Because it is the entry point for such input queries, such as incident being reported by users, and so service requests being reported or raised by users. Now, though this is the official purpose statement from ITIL, if you look at the last point on this slide, it mentions that organizations can and should adjust the practice purpose statements and other recommendations of ITIL according to their objectives and circumstances. For example, one organization might have the purpose of this practice as to have better management of services. So it is up to them what they exactly would want to have this practice do for them. And of course, in most organizations, or in at least some organizations, the main purpose is as just we described, being the entry point and single point of contact, which means they would need to have an effective communication interface between the provider and its users, and mainly for the purpose of incidents and service requests to be handled as part of those communications. So communications is a very key area in this practice. Further, as you know, a practice is made up of all the 4 dimensions. So it is not necessarily only people, but also information and technology, value streams and processes, partners and suppliers. Most of the time, we have heard the term service desk as a team, a group of people. Therefore, we see the first entry here in this table. It is a dedicated team, sometimes known as the service desk. But in this discussion here, we should not be limiting ourselves only to this understanding. It also means the practice includes information and technology, such as a dedicated information system, which can also be known as the service desk. And also there are certain workflows and procedures for communications with users and other teams, which also form part of the practice. And in section 2, we will be dealing with the value streams and processes dimension for this practice. Then not to ignore the partners and suppliers dimension for this practice. Whenever there are third parties involved, they can also be the service desk function or a team. Further, therefore, the term service desk can refer to many things. It can be a function or a team of people. It can be a group of resources. Particularly in ITIL4, a practice is collection of all the 4 resources, meaning the 4 dimensions of service management. And therefore, the service desk team as such may be involved in activities of many other practices, though mainly it will have activities from the service desk practice, incident management practice, service request management practice. They can also do problem management activities, service configuration management activities, relationship management activities, and so on. Therefore, we can conclude that the practice is involved in all value streams where the service provider communicates with users. Wherever there are communications, the service desk can play a good role there, because it aims to ensure that these communications are effective and convenient for all parties involved. I would like to show you a picture from our examples. We have separate presentations with our examples or pictures that's known as supporting materials. And this will give us more clarity on what I am explaining here or trying to explain. So on the left here, I have a box which reflects the services practice. which is mainly to communicate, acknowledge, classify, own, and act on queries from users, which can be incident reports or service requests or queries. And we see on the right side, this practice connects with incident management and service request management practice in most cases. And then I was mentioning earlier that it can connect with other practices also. But if you think about the service desk as a group of people or a team, then this group of people will, of course, will perform the service desk practice activities, such as being the single point of contact. This is the middle arrow here, the double-edged arrow. If you move to the top arrow there, the service desk team can trigger and usually will perform some activities from the incident management practice. And at the bottom, we have this team will trigger and usually performs some activities from the service request management practice. So service desk, therefore, plays a key role in contributing to many value streams. Now, we have seen briefly earlier that communications plays a key role in this practice because this practice enables the best possible communication between the service provider and its users. Therefore, the first statement here is the practice involves establishing effective and convenient communication channels between the users and the service provider. And normally there would be a need for multiple channels, such as face-to-face, phone lines, video, and others. And these channels should be integrated to provide seamless, convenient user experience. We will discuss more on that afterwards, the concept of the omni-channel communications that will come up later. And when the communication channels are good, they allow users and the service provider to exchange information in a very convenient way amongst each other. And the quality of information is also ensured. Let us now look at the various characteristics of such communication channels between the service provider and its users, which the service provider would have to make arrangements for. So we have here accessibility, assurance, availability, contextual intelligence, familiarity, integration, and usability. Some of these terms are intuitive, but some would need some more explanation. And we can see that on the right, in the right column here. Accessibility means the channels for communication should have features to handle multiple languages. The formatting should be appropriate, and it should support people who might be impaired, for example, visually. And there may be other devices to access communication channels and special skills needed. Assurance is about assuring users that the channels are genuine, they're secure, and comply with applicable regulations, policies, and rules. For example, there could be some data privacy laws applicable when information is being shared. Availability. It should be available for the users and the service provider staff as well, whenever they are needed and wherever they are needed. And this can also include mobile interfaces, which can have maybe local coverage or global coverage, or maybe availability could be for limited hours or around the clock. Contextual intelligence. This can be very useful, wherein when a user calls in, the system detects the profile of the user and accordingly adjusts, meaning the service desk staff will adjust to the user's needs appropriately. And this means, when a user calls in, a form might pop up reflecting the user's information, which is visible to the agent, the service desk agent, that is. So it can have pre-populated contextual data, for example, their demographic, their age group, whatever is relevant, the history of communication with that user, and so on. Next characteristics is the familiarity of the communication channel. If you think about this, if you're a user, you would prefer to use a familiar channel rather than a new one. And because some people may have struggled with a new channel that they see, unless they are well trained or well experienced in their channel. So social media, forums, email, chats, these are good in general, but there may be some people who are not familiar with this. So those have to be taken into account. Some people might prefer to use the phone always or an email. Integration. This is key in this practice. The multiple channels can sometimes pose problems, and therefore these need to be integrated so that the service interactions with the users are happening in a smooth, seamless way. we will be going deeper into this integration concept or the omni-channel concept. This can mainly reduce or eliminate data entry duplication and prevent information loss. Then usability, this is about interfaces of communication need to be clear, intuitive, helpful, and functional.